Are you plagued by the problem of procrastination? If so, you're not alone. Procrastination affects people from all walks of life, and we have the solution. Check out our free fast track class, No More Procrastination, and discover the triggers that power your own behavior and learn how to defeat this problem head on. Register at www.lifehack.org/focus-fast-track.
Welcome to the Lifehack Show. Life is full of limitations. Learn how to break free and live your best life. Join me, Allie Kramer, Content Director of Lifehack, as I interview the top experts in the self-improvement sphere for advice on how to make life more enjoyable, no matter who you are. If you're looking for insight on how to overcome any obstacle, this podcast is made for you. Today, I'll be speaking with Mike Kitko. He's the author of the book, The Imposter in Charge, which is a vulnerable and raw account of Mike's journey from being an overweight, overstressed, overachieving alcoholic business executive who was once on the brink of divorce to a life of authenticity, courage, confidence, and clarity. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Allie. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So this is quite a story, and I don't want to give away all the intricate details of the book, but I'm really eager to talk with you today about imposter syndrome. It's kind of a silly topic to be excited about, but I think that it's something that I found is a big barrier to having a fulfilling life and something that I think a lot of people can relate to and struggle with. So this is going to be pretty insightful, I think, for a lot of people. And you talk a lot about feeling like an imposter within different leadership positions. You say you felt like an imposter in every leadership position you ever held. You said you failed and needed to rebuild your life from the ground up. That's quite a statement to make in your life. Could you share more with our audience about what inspired you to make this kind of big change and what you mean by feeling like an imposter in every position that you held?
Yeah, it's a big question, but so the word, as you asked the question, the word that came up was inadequacy. And I say that word shows up in a million places in the book. And inadequacy kind of fuels everything. And we make decisions based on anything from who other people want us to be, what we feel we should do, how we, comparing ourselves to perfection. It shows up in so many ways. Inadequacy shows up in so many ways. And going all the way back to, to childhood and I tell a story in the book about feeling like when I was trying out for a baseball team when I was in Little League and feeling like I completely, flopped the tryouts. And then I was the first overall pick in the entire draft, just never feeling like I was good at anything or good enough at anything and comparing myself to absolute perfection. And then I found myself as I was going through school and eventually joined the Marine Corps. I was doing it to try to please other people and try to serve in the way that other people thought service was the right way, the shoulds of life. And it never felt right for me, but I just felt like I'd eventually find happiness. And that led all the way through, individual contributor roles, senior level management, executive level management. And I always just felt that everybody has it all figured out but me. I'm broken and everyone else seems happy. And I just felt like this fraud, like I was always out of place and I was always just showing up inferior.
Did you feel like you were going to get found out? Like someone's going to realize that I'm not supposed to be in this high up position, or was that something that you would feel?
Yeah, I would say only every second of every day.
Sure, no biggie.
When you're, I'll speak for myself. When I was in places where I didn't feel that I wanted to be, I would feel like it was just a matter of time before it was all going to fall apart.
Always waiting for that shoe to drop then.
Oh yeah. In my home life, in my professional life, and in my health, it was just a matter of which day was it going to fall apart. And I eventually created that and made it happen.
And like you're saying, the book's title, The Imposter in Charge, that feeling literally led your life. It was in control.
Yeah. So I would be in an executive level room with a team that I had built and we were accomplishing things that most teams couldn't. And we were outperforming many plants in the corporation that I was a part of. And I felt like I was absolutely useless. And I had assembled the team because they were talented and I wasn't. They possessed things that I didn't, and they could solve problems that I couldn't. And I assembled that team, and we were one of the best performing plants in the entire corporation, but I was useless and I was going to get found out because I didn't understand myself. I didn't have enough self-awareness. I didn't understand my talents, my strengths, my gifts. I didn't understand those things that were not my gifts. I didn't understand that I didn't have to be all things to all people at all times and have every answer. I felt if I didn't possess something, then I possessed nothing. And that's why I felt like a fraud and an imposter in every role I've ever played in. In fact, that showed up in the way I was a spouse for my wife and the way I was a father for my kids. That insecurity and inadequacy showed up everywhere.
Interesting. So you felt, like you're saying, inadequate in every area of your life. And probably, I'm guessing it kind of created this damaging cycle of, the worse you feel in one area, the worse you're going to feel in others. And it's just going to be this continuation of not feeling good enough. And it sounds so much like it's beyond confidence at this point. It's actually a mental block where, like you said, you can see your own strengths, your own talents, your own contributions to the world. It was like you're kind of unable to see those.
Well, I'd say go beyond a mental block. Yes, certainly there was a mental block, but there was also an emotional block. And I remember the first time, and I share this, to a wider audience, constantly. And I, as you said, raw and vulnerable. I just exposed the imposter. Let's back up a second. The imposter hides everything because he's afraid of everything falling apart. And now with the reshaping of that, it's really about sharing every piece of garbage that I've accumulated so that I no longer feel like an imposter. It's almost like swinging the other way.
Authenticity. Interesting.
Yeah, just true authenticity.
Wow.
I dug such a hole for so long, and I was so far out of alignment with anything that was natural and healthy for me in terms of, my health or the way I was showing up in service or, my career or how I was, how I was parenting my kids or how I was, partnering with my wife. I was so far out of alignment that when I started working with a coach and starting to, recreate what life is, he said, look in a mirror. And I did so. And he says, now say, I love you. And I just had like tears coming down my face. I couldn't even spit those.
Wow.
So it was a complete disdain for myself. It was a complete, I had allowed myself to live, and I was 43 at this time. I'm 47 now, but I had allowed myself to live for 43 years according to everybody else's rules. And again, in career, in what I pursued to create wealth, in how I, rules that I didn't believe and agree with, but that I taught my kids because that's the way I thought we were supposed to teach our kids. In the political acumen and that showed up in my family, in religions that I followed, that I tried so hard to fit into, that never felt natural. I had flexed myself, and I had lived for everyone else my entire life because I was inadequate, and I tried to find adequacy in what everybody else wanted for me, and it was never ever going to be there. I was never going to find it living anybody else's way. And when I looked in a mirror and he says, say I love you, I couldn't spit those words out because I didn't believe it. I hated myself because I had gotten myself into such a hole, and I never ever truly lived my own life. I lived for everyone else.
Yeah, it's like you didn't know yourself even.
No, I had never even explored myself. Right. I just thought that since I was broken, right, that everyone else had it figured out, and I just had to live their way.
So tell me about this coach. Is this one of the role models, or someone that's really propelled a change in your life? How did that come about?
Yeah. So actually, I tell the story in the Imposter in Charge. Paul was a friend of mine. I'm from Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and I spent some time in the Marine Corps. We moved across my wife and I, and my oldest kid at the time, or my kid, Katie, who was one of two. We moved across the country. We spent 10 years in Oregon, and now we live in St. Louis, Missouri, and we've lived here for the last 6 years. I was on a corporate sponsored MBA. So, feeling complete lack of talent, feeling like I was absolutely useless to my corporation. They kept promoting me and accelerating me, and now they're going to pay for my MBA. So if that wasn't validation, but I couldn't feel it at the time. So I'm sitting in the first day of MBA class, and this guy, Paul, who was also, coincidentally from Maryland and moved across the country to Portland, and we didn't know each other, but this was our first day together. So we spent 2 years in a cohort, an MBA cohort, and we grew close together. And we moved here, my wife and I and my 2 kids at the time moved here from Oregon and to St. Louis. We restarted our life, but we were still friends with Paul back in Oregon. And he watched on Facebook, as my life started to crumble and collapse.
So you were sharing a little bit about your kind of turmoil that you were going through. Was it like a cry for help, do you think?
No, it wasn't a cry for help. Okay. It was what he saw on Facebook was how many beers I was drinking and how much pride I had in destroying my body.
Gotcha. That's clarity. Okay.
He was watching my life collapse before his very eyes, and he stayed in contact. And when I lost my second, executive position in 20 months because everything was imploding, Paul said, he called me, and he had started a life coaching business. And he called me and said, "Hey, are you interested in working together to try to rebuild your life?" And I thought, so is this something that's going to cost me? And and I thought it was like ridiculous that I was going to have to pay my friend to be my friend. So anyway, that is how Paul and I connected, and that was my first coach, was my friend who I was paying to be a coach, which I didn't understand at the time.
Had you ever heard about life coaches or anything even remotely close to that?
I had never heard of a life coach before.
Interesting.
I had an executive coach when one of the companies was trying to save me and salvage me. They saw me deteriorating, and as I say in the Imposter in Charge, I survived that process. But no, I had never heard of a life coach before, and it seemed like a very foreign concept. But we worked together for a few months. He got me back, working with him, helped me get back on my feet to the point that I actually filed for divorce from my wife because I was going on a journey, right? I was an alcoholic. She was in chemical dependency. And we were going on a journey. Me and Paul were going on a journey, and my physical, my mental, my emotional health started clearing up. And my wife fought me tooth and nail. She wanted me back in the pain, right? Back in our abusive days. And when that didn't happen, I filed for divorce, and that started a beautiful journey that I document of both of us getting clean and sober and rebuilding our complete life all over again.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so inspiring. So surely you make it sound so easy. You're I was a complete and total wreck, and then I got a life coach and everything kind of turned out better. But surely you faced challenges, setbacks, getting where you are today. How did you get through that?
Yeah, so everything, the entire battle, Allie, was a battle of self-doubt and self-trust and self-loathing. And
still the imposter.
Yeah, man, just complete rejection of everything that I am and everything I stood for and everything that, that I had built in my life. It was so far out of alignment that I just didn't value anything about me. And it was just literally, I had a coach one time, he says, mind your breath and mind your step, right? Just pay attention to the very next breath and the very next step you take, and just make sure they're in alignment with what you're really, what you want to create in your life. And it's starting to move. what we did is we started to design what I wanted in life, the life that I wanted and the life that I would design for myself without concern for what anybody else in my life wanted from me. And that includes my kids, my wife, what my parents would want for me, what anybody else would want for me. It's completely redesigning the life that I get to live instead of the life that I felt that I had to live, right?
Yeah.
And recreating that from my desires, and accepting and embracing my desires, and accepting and embracing my talents and gifts, and understanding that my weaknesses, I just didn't even need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. So how did you figure out that it was imposter syndrome that was really holding you back?
So I just felt like, looking back 43 years at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looking back 43 years, I always felt like a fraud. I always felt like I was just wearing a mask. And I remember listening to a podcast, and this was well after my journey started. After the journey of transformation
Mm-hmm.
started, I remember listening to an audio and just hearing the words imposter syndrome, and it was like, aha, there it is. Right? I didn't even need to have it defined for me to understand what the hell it is.
That's so interesting. So that was like the first step, like you went 43 years without even realizing what you were looking for, that's pretty significant. That's a huge amount of time.
Yeah. And you certainly don't, polish that turd up and it shines overnight, right? It's something that you gotta, for the rest of your life, you have to nurture and love and appreciate. And listen, here's the life that I get to live now. My wife and I wake up every day. I wake up early, and I document this in the book. I wake up early and I have a morning breath. I don't wake up with an alarm clock, but I'll wake up somewhere between 4 and 4:30 most mornings. And I get up and I do my routine. And, it's physical, mental, and emotional exercises. And I connect with myself and I meditate. And then my wife comes downstairs a little bit later, and we sit there and have coffee and talk about our day and talk about business. And then we sit in the sitting room and we watch other cars drive out from our cul-de-sac and go off to work. And then my kids come down to get ready for school, and, they leave. And then she and I, we might have calls throughout the day, and I might jump on a cool podcast. And, I might have a couple client sessions, and I go and I might write another piece of content. And then my kids come home from school and they see that, that I'm living a life that's designed for me, by me.
Yeah. How inspirational. What a great model for your kids.
It is. And they see that you never really have to work again when you just do what you love and what you enjoy. And I used to think that was a cliche and a myth, but that was it was the truest thing that's ever existed, that when you literally find your true north and find the thing that's made for you, and it's what you want to do, and it's what other people, a service or something that someone else needs in their life, then you never really have to work again. You just get to be, you get to be instead of do, right?
Right, exactly. And appreciate the time that you have being, which is, yeah, that's great.
So in that case, to add value, the only thing you need to do is breathe. You just need to breathe, because your breath inspires all the doing, and you enjoy the doing so much, it's not really doing, but you breathe and you add value to the world. And when you add value to the world adds value to you, and you never need to sacrifice.
Yeah.
You never need to wake up when you don't want to, or do anything you don't want to, or go anywhere where you don't want to. And no one, and this is the piece that was the hardest to learn, no one else in the world is authorized to design your life for you. And no one else in the world is authorized to make decisions for you unless you give them that power and that authority.
I love that. That is an extremely powerful sentiment right there. I mean, it really makes you think about our choices and our focus and our energy and our time spent and what the hell we're all doing here. So that's really interesting. So I'm guessing that you've been inspired by people in your life Do you have any role models?
Yeah, I'm going to get emotional because my number one role model in my life right now is the person that helped me become the person that I am and the man that I am by helping me collapse in the perfect way for me, and that's my wife.
Oh.
My wife forces me to be me.
Hmm.
She forces me to shrink to no one and shrink for no one. And every once in a while, when she sees the insecurity and inadequacy come back, she has no problem looking at me and looking me straight in the eyes and saying, "You're shrinking. You're shrinking."
You're
And
a lucky man, that's for sure.
my wife is my role model because she always makes sure I'm walking towards the places and the people that need me.
That's beautiful.
Benefit from me.
I think that's really important, that it's, living your life is kind of it's like a work of art that's always being worked on.
Yeah, look, there's three things that every human being and I'm presenting my perspective. Mm-hmm. So take that for what it's worth. But
of course, this is what this show's about, your perspective.
Exactly. This is shown up for me in my own life. It's shown up for me when I look back at my career and the hundreds of people that I've managed. When I look at the hundreds of people that I've coached and that I've taught and that have been students in programs, there's three things that every human being possesses: fear, insecurity, and inadequacy. And as we step into higher levels of power, our fears, our insecurities, and our inadequacies get more powerful as well. Mm-hmm. You never, ever outgrow fear, insecurity, and inadequacy. You just learn how to manage them, become one with them, and utilize them and embrace them at higher levels as you grow. So some people think that as your fears diminish, then your power increases, and as your powers increase, your fears continue to diminish. But that's not the case. Uh-huh. As your power increases, your fear increases, and then that allows you to step into a higher level of power, and so on and so forth. So when I'm sitting down with a new prospect or someone in one of my programs, and they hear this line all the time, people are trying to find freedom from inadequacy or from fear or from insecurity. But the way we become powerful is finding freedom in inadequacy and in the insecurity and in the fear. Because you're never going to escape it. You're never going to eat it away. You're never going to have sex enough to get rid of it. You're never going to gamble it away. You're never going to be able to take it. You're never going to be able to take enough drugs to make it go away. You're never going to be able to watch enough television to make it go away. So building a relationship with it and finding how it serves you and how much power and potential that it can give you in your life. The same thing, you've heard the cliche, the same thing that'll make you laugh will make you cry.
Yeah.
Well, I have clients, the same thing that made them literally, and I'm not speaking like figuratively here, the same thing that'll make you a crack addict will help you build an amazing business.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Because the same fear that paralyzes you will make you build something powerful because it's never enough.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And so you're saying, by embracing your fear and changing it from kind of resistance into curiosity, that's kind of the key to overcoming this imposter syndrome.
By using it to your advantage. Mm-hmm. The next book that I read, the next meditation that I execute, that I practice, the next workout, the next client that I get, the next program that I launch, the next podcast that I'm on, all inadequacy. Mm-hmm. Because since I might as well, I probably don't have enough, so I just need a little bit more of something, right?
Right.
It's all inadequacy, and inadequacy serves you. Inadequacy, the next raise you get is inadequacy. The next The next business you launch is inadequacy.
Uh-huh.
The next, the next kid that you have
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
is inadequacy, because whatever you have is not enough, right?
Uh-huh.
So either you can create through inadequacy, or you can destroy through inadequacy.
That's a lot to chew on, but I mean, it makes so much sense. And it's actually so positive to think about it in that way, with all these opportunities that kind of are around the corner amongst your fears and the shadows of your fears. So let's talk a little bit before we run out of time here about your book. I'm really excited about this. Again, it's called The Imposter in Charge. So let our audience know kind of what's inside, what they can look forward to reading about.
Yeah, so I worked, I started writing about 4 or 5 books before I wrote this one. And I ran into, I hired a person to help me navigate writing this book, right? So this is, I was going to write an autobiography and it was going to be awesome. And I was kind of challenged. So, somebody said, hey, nobody really gives a shit about you. They said, do you want 2 people to read it, or do you want 2 million people to read it? So, and that kind of shifted the way I was going to write the book. And what I mean by that is, this book is not an autobiography. It's about what shows up for the imposter, for someone living with the imposter syndrome, and like tools, tips, life hacks, I guess, ways to solve, ways to embrace, ways to shift perspective about your imposter syndrome, about fear and insecurity, inadequacy, and then utilize that for your best interest and embrace yourself at a deeper level.
That sounds fantastic. So it's like a go-to guide for anyone with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate it a lot. I spent a lot of time writing it, and a lot of tears, a lot of sweat and a lot of tears when I'm writing this thing. But my story, my wife's story, our story, my kids' show up, and there's a story about, me waking up on the floor after a bender one night. My wife's not in bed. I didn't know where she was. I saw she was down the basement. And then, what happened after that, and the text that I received from my kid when I was at work, right? And just all the chaos that was going on in my life. So my family stories are weaved in there, just like some client stories, and helping, some of the things that we've worked through. But there's problems that we face when we're dealing with the imposter syndrome, and then a few solutions for each of those problems, and a lot of tools and techniques to connect you with yourself, to help you dive deeper inside yourself and embrace yourself and help you achieve higher levels of self-acceptance, because it's self-rejection that creates the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. So where can listeners find out more about and purchase your book? You
can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, online. It's my first book. It's one, I've got like 4 more planned. I've got 2 more at the publisher right now, ready to be proofread and edited.
How exciting.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I wrote like 3 books at the same time. It's really cool. It's exciting.
Yeah, I bet. I love hearing this too, because it's you're really walking the walk here. You're talking about, how you kind of hit rock bottom, found your way up, and now you just seem so happy and pleased with your day-to-day experience of life. That's super encouraging.
It's fun to be me, and here's why. The only thing that I love to do is develop people and develop teams. That's the only thing I've ever really enjoyed in my life. And I used to do 1,000 things a day in corporate America, and there's only, those things that I enjoyed. And now I get to, let everybody else do those other 998. And I just get to focus on people and teams. And that includes speaking, that includes writing content that helps people embrace themselves. It includes, just speaking and sharing the message. And my wife does a lot of the public facing things for our business, and, interacts with our marketing team and some of our clients and the publicity and those parts. So we formed that partnership as well. Mm-hmm. And I get to live. I don't have to live, right? I get to live and be me, and I don't have to be me in any aspect that doesn't.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I mean, you're really living your dream, which is amazing. especially with the partnership that you have with your wife. How beautiful and inspiring for so many people. I know that as you're talking about your own experience as an executive and going through marital problems and everything, when you're stressed out in one area or multiple areas of your life, it hits everything. But when you can kind of refocus, being in the here and now, and like you're saying, just breathe, things can start to fall in place, and appreciation can come. And it sounds like you've really mastered that, and you're a great person to consult for how to overcome it yourself if you're facing imposter syndrome.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll tell you, as I'm speaking and as I'm talking to people and as I'm trying to inspire them and kick their ass in a healthy direction for them. And I use the line all the time, I only want for you what you want for yourself. Once they tell me and they get locked into what they want, I relentlessly won't let them not get it.
I love that. And I even see in your book that you'll kind of be like a champion in someone's head, you know?
Yeah. No, if I'm in your head and you're hearing me and I'm the reason that you won't give up, then I've done my job, right? But I don't want for you what you don't want for yourself. So all the imposter syndrome is a fear of being yourself. It's a deep fear in our emotional and mental systems that tell us that as we're built, that as we're designed, that as we want to show up, it's not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. Our DNA encoding, our genetic coding, has fear, inadequacy, and insecurity baked deep into our DNA as survival techniques, as ways for humanity to evolve, for the world to evolve, for our species to evolve. And they're all illusions that are created to make sure that evolution happens. Huh. And you could either know that they're there and observe them and observe them for what they are, false signals, or you can completely participate in them and sit on your couch and be scared the rest of your life and do nothing with it. So the imposter syndrome is just facing that or accepting that rejection of yourself, the fear, the inadequacy, the insecurity that's genetically encoded, that's in our DNA, that's meant to help us progress. It's allowing that to hold you back and to make sure you live a life out of alignment and there's no happiness, joy, peace, prosperity that you'll enjoy outside of the alignment that's meant for you. Mm-hmm. And here's the cool part. Only you can determine what is perfect for you. No one else has the authority, the responsibility, or the ownership over you other than you.
That is really cool. It's super empowering to think about it that way. Mike, this has been such an awesome episode. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing even just parts of your very intimate story with our audience today. Thank you again for joining us. It's been really great talking with you. And to our listeners, I urge you to check out Mike's website and get his book. His website is mikekitko.com. That's MIKEKITKO.com. And his book is The Imposter in Charge. Be sure to pick up a copy. And Mike, again, very inspirational stuff. Your energy is very, very, very evident. And you've already gotten me fired up for kind of thinking about my own authenticity and, where I stand in life. Although I have to say, I do absolutely adore my job, so I think I must be on the right track.
It sounds like you're aligned for yourself.
Yeah, good. So that wraps up today's show. Thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.